Hi friends, it's Brianna from Brianna's Bookshelf and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about the books that I read in February. So February was a little bit of a slow reading month for me. I did not read quite as much as I wanted to in February. However, I did have a lot of 5-star reads, so that's super exciting. And I'm trying something new today. Today we're going to talk about the books in order of least liked to most liked. So starting off with, I think, the main reason that I didn't read as many books as I wanted to in February. The one 3-star book I read this month, Onyx Storm. Yeah, so unfortunately this did not go as well as I had hoped. I did have a little bit of nervousness about this book going into it just because I really did not love Iron Flame as much as I liked Fourth Wing, and I was worried that this series was just going to continue to go downhill for me, which it has. However, I think there's definitely still room for it to move up in the future. So I'm going to keep my eye out for the new releases when they come out later. I know there's supposed to be 5 books eventually. So this is the 3rd book in a series. And one of the main reasons I didn't like this, and the reason that it put me in a reading slump, is the writing style. I don't know what it is exactly. I think that there is so much dialogue in this book and not very much description of what, like, the setting there's not a lot of description of what's going on. In my opinion, I felt like there's so much dialogue and there's so many names being dropped that it's just really distracting. Even for someone who has read the other books in the series, coming to this book, I was like, what is going on? Like, for the first chapter, I read that and was like, I don't even want to keep going. Like, this is just boring as hell. I'm just reading all these people's names, and we started off from literally what was happening at the end of the last book. Like, we were just thrown right into it. There's no sort of easing you in or like kind of getting you used to being in the story again. Not that I think like books have to hold your hand. That's certainly not the author's job to hold your hand and like tell you what's going on, but the amount this just jumped right in from the beginning was unenjoyable for me personally. And then one of the other main issues I had with it is that I felt like Xaden and Violet, the 2 main characters, I felt that their personalities felt really flat in this book. So one of the things that I really liked about book 1 was Xaden and Violet, them individually, them interacting together. They both like have really strong personalities, and Xaden, who's such a good book boyfriend in book 1, he was morally gray but would like do anything for the people that he loves. And in this book, I just felt like neither of them had any personality, and I did not like them together. Like, literally the spicy scenes in this book, I basically just like flipped through and didn't even read them because I was not interested, not into it. I was like, let me just reach the end of this book, please. Yeah, so I'm sorry if you are a lover of Onyx Storm, but for me, it just really did not work. There were a few things I liked about it. That's why it's 3-star, right? It's not like a 2-star, 1-star or anything. I thought some of the plot points were interesting. We got to see like more aspects of this world, like new places, new settings. And I really liked the whole plot line with one of the dragons was super great, which, I mean, yeah, we're here for the dragons, so that was great. And then also the character, Riddock, I think that's how you say his name, Riddock or Riddock. He is so funny, and he had a lot of good lines in this book, and he just made me smile every time. So those were the saving graces of this book for me. Then going into the books that I gave 4 stars, the first one is Clean by Olivie Blake. And this is actually a fan fiction. This was not really on my radar at all. I have read one book by Olivie Blake previously, The Atlas 6, and enjoyed it. Okay, it wasn't like a fave, but I did enjoy it. But for Chloe Bunny here on YouTube, for her Patreon book club in the month of February, we read Clean, and it is a Hermione fan fiction. And this was my first time reading a Hermione fan fiction. If you don't know, Hermione is like a ship of Draco Malfoy and Hermione Granger. So super fun if you're really into Harry Potter. I actually never read the Harry Potter books growing up. I know that's kind of crazy for a book lover, but I did watch the movies. I didn't finish all of them until fairly recently, like within the last 2 years, I think. But I do like the world. It just like has never been like something I'm super into. However, I really liked this aspect of the interaction between Draco and Hermione. I think that these characters pair really well together. Hermione's, I guess, like bookishness and how stubborn she is and strong-willed goes really well with Draco. Has some similar personality traits in a way. Like, he also comes across as stubborn and strong-willed. And in this fiction, Clean, we kind of got to see a different side of him where he wasn't quite as cruel. He kind of was putting on this persona for everyone else, but who he was inside had really changed, and he was able to grow to be a better person in some ways, even though he kind of had to keep that trapped inside. But yeah, we're basically starting off with Hermione and Draco getting paired together on a class project for a potions class, and they are forced to work together on this potion every evening for a whole month. And during this, you know, they're constantly bickering. We're also seeing like the interpersonal relationship with Hermione and Harry and Ron, and in the start of this book, Hermione and Ron are having a little bit of a romance, but we see things change between the characters. All these dynamics change. This is taking place like near the end of the series, so when they're older, there's some like high stakes stuff going on in this book. I think it's year 6, I want to say, is what it is for like their schooling. Yes, but I gave it 4 stars. I had a really fun time. I really liked the romance and the plot. All of it I thought was just great, honestly. It was really fun. My other 4-star read of the month was Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna Van Veen. And this is a book that I got as an e-arc from NetGalley. So thank you to NetGalley and the publisher. I thought this was awesome. So this is a book following 2 sisters, and they're actually twins in, I believe it's the 1700s or early 1800s. One of the twins, she is married and she lives in this like manor estate with her husband that's in this like really boggy wetland kind of area, and she lives like near this town where her childhood friend of her and her sister is also like a doctor there, and so like her and her husband and this other man, they're all like good friends and know each other from school. And then her sister lives in a different town, and she actually is the companion to this older woman. So basically she gets paid to keep this woman company because their parents died and didn't leave them any money. So she was kind of forced into this position unexpectedly. So these sisters are really close, and at the start of the book, the one who lives further away, she gets a letter saying that her sister is getting really sick. So she of course immediately rushes back to where her sister lives on this manor estate. And then once she starts to read the other letters her sister has sent her, gets there, she starts to figure out that things have been pretty weird. So basically the sister was accompanying some people on a dig in the bogs when they found a bog body. That's like a whole rabbit hole. If you haven't heard of bog bodies, you should look into it. That's like something I did already know about, but basically it's like people who died and then their bodies were preserved in these bogs, and this is a real thing, you could look it up. Yes, they find this bog body and she becomes like obsessed with it. This happens right before she gets sick. Her sister rushes to the manor to make sure she's okay, and things just get really weird. Like the sister who is sick is kind of like going crazy, and she may get a little bit of a taste for blood. So it's kind of like a vampire adjacent kind of book. Definitely like I would say horror. I didn't find it like super scary or anything, but I really like the themes of the horror. I thought also it's a really unique story, like the direction that it goes with the bog body first of all, and then like this kind of not quite vampire situation, but a little bit of bloodlust going on. I thought it was excellent. It also really explores sister dynamics, which was really great, especially between twins, like really interesting topic. And we also kind of explore how the men in these twins' lives influence them. So also just kind of like the relationship between women and men in this period of time in history. So overall, I thought it was really good, and I would recommend reading Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna Van Veen. Okay, getting into my 5-star reads, we actually have 4, which is really exciting. I had no 5-star reads in January, so to have 4 in February is crazy. So I'm really happy with that. But the first one was Acts of Desperation by Nolan. This book is kind of like, it has very interesting writing style, very kind of stream of consciousness writing style. And I've heard this described as an anti-romance, So essentially we're following this woman in England, and she is kind of just like living her early to mid 20s life. She's like a party girl. She's very into going out. She's kind of constantly either drunk or hungover, but she has a lot of fun just kind of running around London with her different friends. And she easily falls in and out of these different romantic situations, but she kind of does feel like something is lacking in her life. And so she meets this man who kind of takes her by surprise, but who she's immediately attracted to. And he is very different from her. He's not really a partier at all. He is in like the art scene, and he is kind of like austere and at times can be a little bit like cold. Definitely with his personality. They start this relationship. First, it seems like it's just casual, but she falls for him more and more, and it turns into this kind of one-sided relationship where she feels completely enamored and obsessed with him, and he does not treat her well. And he kind of has this like other girl in the background that he's like, oh, I can't date you because I'm still not over her. She broke my heart. Overall, it's like, it's not a good romance. Like exactly as I heard it described, it is like an anti-romance. This is like not a good love story. But what I loved about it so much is the writing. I read this on my Kindle, but I really want to get a physical copy because Megan Nolan's writing blew me out of the water. Like there were so many quotes that I wanted to highlight. That's why I really want a physical copy. And her writing was just like punching me in the gut. Like I would read these things and feel like I didn't know other people had had these experiences or other people had thought this. Like I just have never had an original experience in my life. You know what I mean? Like it was really validating to read some of these thoughts and experiences that I'm sure a lot of other women have had as well. And yeah, it was just like I really connected with it. And I don't know what else to say about it or describe it because the plot in itself doesn't sound particularly appealing, at least to me. The writing, incredible. 10 out of 10. I loved it. Then I read the second book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, The Ashes of the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. So this is the sequel to The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I won't go too much into it since it is a sequel, but in this first book we follow Oriah, who is a human who lives in the vampire world, and she enters this tournament called the Kajari because the winner of the Kajari will get a wish granted to them from the goddess Nyaxia, and she basically wants to become a vampire or get powers because she is the human daughter of the vampire king, and she's been kind of kept prisoner in the castle her whole life, not allowed to do anything because it would all be too dangerous for her because just a human girl living in a world full of vampires. So she enters this competition against all these other vampires where she'll have to fight them, and she ends up making an alliance with this vampire Veen. From there they kind of start to build a little bit of a relationship, and yeah, that book was crazy. I love The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and it ended so crazy. So this book picks up from where that one left off, and I cannot tell you about the plot, unfortunately, without giving spoilers. But I love Oriah and Veen's relationship, and they're like, honestly, both of them as characters and the way they interact, they're probably one of my all-time favorite fantasy romance couples. I just love them so much. Oriah is just like so strong, and she can do anything. She doesn't let her abilities hold her back at all. She just like dreams and does it. And Veen, he does some things that are very like morally gray, but he does it all in the name of something greater, and he's really just such a good person. And their bantering makes me so happy. Like they're just thinking about them makes me smile. I just love their relationship so much. So if you're in the mood for a good fantasy romance, I would highly recommend The Serpent and the Wings of Night, that duology. It really brings a smile to my face. All right, my next 5-star was Tear or Tear, I'm not sure which. I think it's Tear by Erica McKeen. This is like such a little unknown horror book, but I actually heard about this from Wicked Reading. She read this and gave it 5 stars and just said that it was phenomenal. And hearing her describe it made me really want to read it too. And I also gave it 5 stars. This is a phenomenal book, but I don't think this is going to be for everyone. This is like the girlies who like the weird books are gonna like this book, okay? In this book, we're following a girl named Frances, and she is in college and she lives in a house with some other college roommates. She's pretty introverted. She's kind of just like, kind of floating around. She doesn't feel strongly about her life at this moment in time. And she is kind of starting to just have these like daydreams and kind of lose her sense of reality a little bit. And she lives in the basement bedroom of this house that she shares with these other girls, and she, like I said, continues to daydream, and then one day she tries to exit the basement and the door is locked. She cannot exit the basement. However, we don't know if the door is actually locked. Like, we don't really know what's real and what Frances is imagining. And Frances takes us through different parts of her life. We get to see her memories, different things that happened to her. And the writing from Erica McKeen is stellar. Like all this writing of these memories that Frances had gave me such a feeling of nostalgia, bringing me back to places and times that I didn't even necessarily remember, or experiences that I felt I had like a similar connection to, just going through her different aspects of her life. Like, this was just hauntingly beautiful in the writing in ways. Like, definitely not a happy story at all, and very, very bizarre, okay? I don't know what to say. I loved it. I would reread this book. I would definitely recommend this if you like weird girl books, or I mean just like strange fiction in general. If you're okay with not knowing what is real and what is imagination, please read this book. This deserves so much hype. I'm obsessed with this book. And my last 5-star of February was Hunting Prince Dracula by Kerri Maniscalco. So this is the sequel to Stalking Jack the Ripper, which I read last year and loved. So I knew I was gonna love this one as well, and this time I actually annotated it. And in this book, we're following our main character, Audrey Rose. She is this girl who wants to become a like autopsy technician, and her uncle does autopsies, and she like will go with him in his lab and train to do autopsies. So yes, in the first book, it's all about Jack the Ripper, and she meets this other guy who also works in her uncle's autopsy laboratory, whatever it's called, whose name is Thomas. And in this book, Audrey and Thomas travel to Romania in order to go to a forensics school together. And then there is all this mystery surrounding whether Prince Dracula has reappeared, because the people in Romania think that maybe he has, and people have been killed by stakes through the heart or draining of their blood. So very strange things happening, and Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell want to find out what's going on. And there is like a slow burn romance going on between Audrey and Thomas. And this is another couple that I'm just so obsessed with. They make me so happy. The things they say to each other is so freaking adorable. I might have to pull up a quote for y'all. Here's a quote, one that I love, that Thomas says to Audrey. "Poe, will you carve my heart out and place it beneath your bed then, Wadsworth? I must admit, it's not an ideal way of ending up in your sleeping quarters." Like, Thomas is just so cute. I freaking love that. You have to read this series. Would definitely recommend. I've only gotten 2 books in. I think there's 5 books overall. But I will definitely be continuing. I'm super obsessed with them. All right, so there you have it. Those were all of the books that I read in the month of February. And thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.